Beneath the roar of the Colosseum, where 50,000 voices could thunder like a storm, the price of blood was carefully calculated. Gladiators were not only warriors of spectacle, they were investments, commodities in flesh, bought and sold with the same logic as cattle or racehorses. Yet behind each clash of sword and shield lay the silent arithmetic of the marketplace. Rome, as always, measured human worth not in courage or honor, but in silver. The training of a gladiator began long before he ever stepped onto the sand. Recruits, whether captured prisoners, condemned criminals, or desperate volunteers seeking fame, were purchased by lanistae, the managers of gladiatorial schools. A prime fighter, strong in build and unbroken in spirit, might cost thousands of denarii at auction. His muscles were weighed like marble blocks, his scars examined like flaws in pottery. Each coin exchanged represented a bet that his body could survive long enough to yield profit. Gladiators were not a uniform class. Some were cheap, purchased in bulk to serve as cannon fodder for public amusements. These men were thrown into hopeless battles, expected to die in their first or second fight. Their price was often no more than that of a farm animal. To the crowd, they were nameless, their deaths a fleeting moment of entertainment. To their owners, they were disposable assets, bought cheaply and replaced just as easily. But the stars of the arena were a different breed. A gladiator who survived and triumphed could become a legend. Victories elevated his market value exponentially. Owners could rent such fighters to games across the empire, each appearance generating profits that dwarfed his initial purchase price. A celebrated gladiator might cost the same as a villa, his fame making him not only an entertainer, but a status symbol for his master. Some were even immortalized in graffiti, their names whispered like those of modern athletes. The irony of this cruel economy was stark. A gladiator could be priceless in glory, yet worthless in life. At any moment, one unlucky strike could erase years of investment. The sand of the arena drank the silver of Rome, not only in the coins paid to stage the games, but in the blood of those whose worth had been reduced to wagers. And then there was the comparison that still shocks. Rome sometimes placed more value on trained beasts than on human gladiators. Exotic animals, lions, elephants, even crocodiles, were imported at immense cost for the games. To transport an elephant from Africa could cost far more than the purchase of several gladiators. A man's life, trained in combat, could be lost for less than the price of a caged lion. Imagine the insult, dying not only for the pleasure of the crowd, but knowing your death was deemed cheaper than the roar of an animal. Yet not all gladiators were helpless pawns. Some volunteered, lured by the promise of fame, fortune, or redemption. These octorati signed contracts selling themselves into servitude, gambling that victory in the arena might buy them glory or riches beyond what ordinary Roman life could offer. Their contracts listed payments, benefits, even potential rewards for survival, an eerie blend of modern sports contracts and death sentences. Their lives were reduced to terms on parchment, sealed with blood and ambition. For Rome's elite, gladiators were both investments and symbols of power. To sponsor games featuring renowned fighters was to advertise wealth and generosity to the people. Senators and emperors alike used them as political tools, turning spectacles of death into instruments of control. Bread and circuses, food for the body, blood for the soul, kept the masses entertained while the machinery of empire ground on. And through it all, the gladiator remained both celebrated and enslaved, his value measured as much in silver as in screams. But what was the true price of the gladiator? Was it the purse of coins exchanged in the marketplace, the rivers of blood spilled in the sand, or the silent terror of a man who knew his worth depended on how loudly the crowd cheered? The gladiator stood at the crossroads of Rome's obsession, with money, with spectacle, with power. His body was both a weapon and a ledger entry, both a man and a market. And in the end, the balance sheet was written in crimson. The sand of the Colosseum was bought with silver, but it was always paid for in blood.